which is the value proposition canvas. It's a tool that's it's linked to the business model canvas. Just as a show of hands, who knows or who has used the business model canvas before? A couple of you? Okay, so the value proposition canvas that we're going to be kind of mucking around with tonight is almost like an add-on to the business model canvas. And we're going to be working in teams. After I give a brief overview around both business model canvas as well as the value proposition canvas, I'm going to be getting you into groups of 4, and we're going to do a worked example, because I think it's more fun when you're actually, someone's showing you a tool to actually use the tool and to kind of work around the tool so that you feel more comfortable, so then you can go and actually use it in your work. So let's begin. So the first thing I'm going to ask you about is this notion of value. So if I said to you, what is value and what is valuable, I just want you to think, just to, basically just think for a minute around what, if I said, what is value? Now I want you to turn to the person next to you and just actually explain what you were thinking about, and then I'm just going to get some answers from you. We need to think around what is value. So if somebody said to you, this is valuable, what do you see as value? Go. I probably should have warned you I walk around a lot. Yeah, you're like...
How's it going? You can come in and tell us your definition of value. Effectuation. Ability to meet my goals over promise. So those qualifications and meet their goals. To meet that goal. Price over if you're not meeting that goal.
Okay, so what do you guys think? What is value? Anyone happy to share what they've just been discussing? What is value? Yeah?
We started with work, and then benefit, and then principles, and belief systems. So.
Oh, good. It's quite a broader sort of approach. Anyone else want to share? Yeah? You guys over here? What do you think?
Time, money, knowledge, inspiration.
These things are value. Yep. How would we create value? If I asked you to create value, and you're thinking around this notion of value, there's different ways that businesses create value, right? So some of it is around time and cost and those kinds of things.
It's also personal and individual. It's all to do with context.
It is
value to you, not value to me necessarily.
Correct. And this is where this value proposition sort of moves in, because it's about fit. Thinking about a customer profile and the ways your solutions actually fit. So yes, I totally agree with you.
Oh, can value also be in the quality of products and services?
Yes, it can be around quality too. So value can be created through a whole range of ways, right? So someone might find it valuable if it's new or novel. Your customers might find the price valuable. So you might operate it at it might be cheap, or it might actually be unique and expensive, but they find that valuable. It might be through performance, better performance relative to other solutions. It might be through customization. So if you think about artwork, people find that valuable because it is as unique. It could be around reducing risks, or just simply getting the job done. It could be the design. It could be the brand. It could be just the convenience. If you've been out and you've got a cracking headache and you walk past a chemist and you see the Panadol, you're like, you're so happy, right? And at that moment, that Panadol is even more valuable to you because it's right there and you need it now. It could be around usability. So something that's typically really tricky to do, a solution might be offered and it completely makes the process so much easier and you're like, oh, is that it? So businesses create value for their customers in different ways. So, this here is the Strategizer is this company that came up with these two tools, right? The business model canvas and the value proposition canvas. So Alex Osterwalder did his PhD and came up with the business model canvas as a result of doing this work around his PhD. And the business model canvas is basically a tool around the ways that entrepreneurs create and appropriate value. And you can see a shift more generally away from, if you listen to the narrative within entrepreneurship, this shift from business plans to, say, a lean launchpad business model canvas, very tools-driven approach. And this is part of this ongoing shift or change within the entrepreneurship community around, instead of focusing on execution, which is what a business plan does, this is the step before, the antecedent, right? It's around design and value. So it's not necessarily saying that business plans don't have value. It's more that business plans focus on execution when you've got a good idea, and this is around exploring ideas and testing that your ideas have value for your customers. So I'm just going to see if this is around the business model canvas. And I'll be giving these out to you, but the business model canvas is basically 9 separate sections that we look at in terms of creating and appropriating value. So when I say appropriating, it's one thing to say, your customers to say, I really like this and I find this very valuable, to I really like this and I want to pay you for this, and as a result you can sustain your business or grow your business. At a minimum, we need to sustain our business, right? So there's often people come up with brilliant ideas, but those ideas they're not willing to pay for, and as a result they're not so brilliant. Valuable, yes, but not a business. And these things are important for entrepreneurs to understand before they set up their businesses. In the business model canvas, we look at 3 different sections. The first is this notion of serving the customer. And the value proposition canvas focuses on this section and this section. So this is the value proposition and customer segments. This here is producing the offer. What key activities, key resources, what are the things we need to actually get this business up and running? And the third section is around the bottom line. So this is around costs, the money going out and the money going in, the revenues and the costs. So if you're looking at the business model canvas, typically there's a question of, oh, there's 9 sections. Where do we start? And different people will start in different places, but there's almost like an overarching idea that you've got user-driven design. That is, this section is all around value, and the ways you create value is by actually understanding your customers intimately. Right? You need to understand who your customers are, their needs, or their problems, or as we're going to go to next, the jobs that they need to get done, and the ways that you fit your solution to these things. Then you've got effectuation, and it says here, you never start here. Because if you don't get your value proposition right, I can tell you, you won't generate revenues, but you will end up with a ton of costs. So the focus is around that top part. Making sure you understand user-driven design to create the right things so that your customers not only like your product or service, but they love it because it fits. It fits exactly what they want. So effectuation is actually a theory that was developed by Sarasvati. Some of you are nodding.
Yeah, we know her, we meet her.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Saras is wonderful. She uses effectuation is a type of logic, and this section is around when entrepreneurs often start. They often start with who am I? What are my traits, tastes, and abilities? What do I know? Who do I know? And get them all together to actually start a business. So that top section is around effectuation. Key resources, key activities, key relationships, that's all around the entrepreneur and understanding those things. Keep having a shift behind. What we're going to be focusing on is this value proposition. So a value proposition canvas is actually, you only write one canvas per segment, one customer. So typically in businesses you have more than one type of customer. And the example that we're running tonight is has two different customers, but you only write one canvas per customer, because if customers have different needs, then filling them out in one canvas will make it very confusing. So what we basically look at is this notion of the value proposition and the customer segment. This here is the customer. We want to develop a customer profile based on user design. So we need to understand who our customers are and really understand them. And then from there, we actually create solutions. So far, so good? Nice. These different sections relate to the different left and right, sort of relate to one another. So the pains fit with the pain relievers. The jobs to be done fits with the offering, and the gains link to your gain creators. So this is about identifying these things about your customer and then thinking around the ways that you could do it differently or create a solution based on those things. That value map is something that you create. It's defined by you, but your customer profile is created by actually talking with your customers. So you actually go out and understand, you create empathetic kind of solutions. You listen to them. And by better understanding them, you create this fit. And you want to validate what you think, your hunches, your hypothesis, by actually talking to them and making sure it does actually fit. Because traditionally, when we looked at innovation and the ways that we actually did innovation, that's okay. The ways we did innovation, we'd all, they have this discussion of sitting there in an ivory tower going, what do you think the customers want? Well, I think the customers want this. How much money do we have? All right, let's go. And they didn't actually talk to the customers. These tools are all about talking to your customers and understanding them in such a way that by the time you're finished, your offering makes them very happy and more willing to not only go, wow, that's a cool idea, but willing to purchase, right? There'll be post-its, lots of them. So this is discovered by observing customers, and this is your solution. I'm pretty sure you can't understand what we're doing here now, right? So we understand, we kind of identify some of these things, and then we come back to the solution. When I actually think about it, I'll just kind of walk you through each section, right? And I'll do this by actually walking through this, and I'll have this for you guys. This is actually just an overview of these different sections. Rather than putting that in the slide deck, I figured, I would walk you through it in the lecture, and then you guys, if you're interested, I can distribute it later. So let's begin. In terms of the customer jobs, which are the section where there's 2 ticks right at the side here, these are the jobs to be done. What are the jobs that your customers need to do? These jobs might be functional tasks. These might be tasks or problems they're trying to achieve. What are their social jobs to be done? Looking good, status, those kinds of things. What are their emotional jobs to be done? It's about feeling good, those kinds of things. Or what are their basic needs? Is it around communication? The pains, where you've got that the sort of face which looks a bit sad. What are the costs? What are their pains? Is there a solution that they're currently being on offer that's too costly? What keeps them up at night? What are the things that make them feel bad? What are the negative social consequences they may face in your product category? What are their fears? What are their common mistakes? Or what are their barriers that they face when using in that particular product class or solution? Okay, what are the things that just make them feel awful? And then you've got the gains where there's a smiley face. What makes them happy? What do the customers expect? And is there ways to go beyond that? What things in the current solution are delightful, or the things they really like about the solutions that they're currently using? What makes their job or life easier? What are they looking for in terms of good design or good practice? What do they dream about? What would increase the likelihood of them adopting your offering? So really thinking about the customer. What are the things that they really like or really dislike? Or what are the things that they have to do but they suffer roadblocks as a consequence of the only solution is the current solution? So we go to the value proposition. So they're basically in terms of the pain relievers. What will produce savings? What will make them feel better? What will make them fix these underperforming solutions that they may be experiencing? How do we end the difficulties or the barriers or the challenges? How can we come up with some sort of solution to that pain? For gain creators up the top, how do we create savings? How do we go beyond their expectations? How do we make their life easier? How do we keep those things that they really love, but build on them? How can we do that in unexpected ways? Right? And then looking at your offering, things like, how do you meet these functional, social, emotional jobs to be done? If it's about status, how could you get that done? And get that done differently? So how do we create value? And then looking at, are these kind of solutions that you sort of, so you go, here's a pain, here's a solution. Here's a gain, here's a solution. Here are some of their functional tasks. This is the way our offering does it and does it better. But not all issues are created equal. So by using this canvas, you'll come up with a whole range of ideas, but not all of them are necessarily things that we need to action. Some are more important and some are more relevant than others because they have a greater pain factor. You know, some of them are minor inconveniences. You're like, yeah, I hate that sound that wakes me up, but I do it, versus I am terrified that this is going to happen and I don't want to do it. You know, some things are really important, some things are less important. So you want to focus on those things that are more important, because by focusing on the things that are more important, you'll create more value for them. So these are things like, it says here, this is essential in terms of gain relevance, and this is nice to have. For these, pain severity, you've got extreme or moderate. And in terms of your job importance, some of these important factors is like important or insignificant. So you need to think when you're generating your solutions, which ones are more important than others? Let's focus on the more important ones because they'll create more value. So here we are at the exercise. So I hope that I've given you a brief and understanding around the tool and how it kind of links with the business model canvas. What I'm going to do is get you into teams of 4 or 5-ish, and we're going to be going through an Airbnb exercise. Does anyone not know what Airbnb is? Okay. Airbnb is, well, let's ask, if you guys were to define Airbnb as business, what would you say? Private room rental in people's houses, online. So they use an online platform to actually where hosts who own these houses can rent out either rooms or entire houses to strangers. There are several elements around Airbnb, like an insurance promise that is important because typically people wouldn't want to hire rooms out to strangers without some sort of guarantee that if they damage something that they could get some money back. Anyone else, if you think around Airbnb, can you think of anything else as an important element of Airbnb?
It's a disruptive technology, so it's going to disrupt an industry.
It's, yes, what industry do you think it's disrupting currently at the moment? Hotels. So traditionally, like if you, before Airbnb, you could go to Craigslist and you could hire a room, like you could do that, but there was lots of risks associated with that and lots of uncertainty. I will identify that there are 2 customers that we're looking at tonight, hosts who own the houses and customers that rent these rooms from hosts. I'm going to get you to imagine that you're the entrepreneurs coming up with Airbnb and you're trying to identify these 2 customer segments and think about them and how they might link to a value proposition canvas.
All right, so we are at the Small Business Association of Australia business event. And your lecture or giving a workshop on
Business value proposition canvas, which is an add-in to the business model canvas.
and can you explain a bit about that in 30 seconds?
Okay, so the value proposition canvas is basically a tool to make sure that the products and offerings that you're creating are actually fitting with the profile of your customer. So it's around understanding, making sure that what you create actually matches what your customer needs are, or the jobs that they need to create, or they're trying to alleviate some of the pains in their life, or trying to enhance some of the things that make them happy, or the gains in their life.
Right. and these guys are doing a case study on Airbnb. Why did you choose Airbnb?
Airbnb, for the most part, is a disruptive new business model, and a lot of people actually know what Airbnb is, so you always try and pick something that is kind of known to the people, because it's a lot easier to create a canvas if you kind of understand the business model from which it comes from.
So I mean, you're looking at what
Customer jobs is they had to find somewhere to stay, so that was searching, locating. Probably not so they find a place to be and stay.
yeah, for
Then contacting. Is that what they go? Place to
So the needs basically